in the last section, we went over the behind-the-scenes flow of what occurred during that Docker build process. Now, that was a rather long section, and we went through a lot of detail. So in this section, I want to do a quick recap, just a very quick overview on the really important critical flow to understand. Now, if you don't want to hear me lecture about this stuff anymore, if you feel like you already have a good understanding, no problem. Pause the video right now and move on to the next section. Again, we're only going to do a recap of what we just spoke about a moment ago. Okay, so here's the recap with a slightly different diagram. So everything started with the from Alpine instruction. That told the Docker server or Docker daemon to go and download the Alpine image. And we use the Alpine image as a base because it comes pre-installed with some really handy programs that are useful for us creating our image. The next thing that occurred was the run instruction was executed by the Docker server. The first thing that occurred there was it looked for the image from the previous step. And so it went back to the previous step and got the Alpine image that had just been downloaded. That image was then used to create a brand new, very temporary container. So here's our container over here. And then the command that we had specified, so apk add -- update Redis, was executed inside of that temporary container. The apk program was executed, it downloaded and installed Redis inside the file system of that container. So the result is a container with a modified file system. It now has Redis added onto it. We then took a snapshot of that container's new file system, and the result was a file system snapshot. We then shut down the temporary container, like this one right here that had just been created, and we got our image ready for the next instruction. And the image that we're using is that file system snapshot, the modified one that we just created when we installed Redis. So you can now imagine that we are now passing on to the next step. We are essentially passing along the Alpine image, but with Redis added on top. So we then move on to the command Redis server instruction. We again get the image from the previous step. We again create a temporary container out of it, but this time around, rather than executing a command inside there, which is the purpose of the run instruction, we instead use the cmd instruction, which is used to specify what the container should do, or excuse me, what the image should do when it is started up as a container. So we told the temporary container that we just created that whenever it gets started in the future, it should try to execute the command redis - server. And the result was a container that has a modified primary command. We then shut down that temporary container and we got it ready, or we took an image out of it and got it ready for the next instruction. But in that case, there are no more instructions, no more steps to execute inside this file. And so the output of the overall series of steps is whatever image was generated during the last instruction inside of our Docker file. All right, so like I said, just a quick recap on that entire process one more time, because it's not super critical that you have an in-depth understanding here, but it definitely makes a lot of this Docker stuff a lot easier if you have a good grasp on this entire flow. So let's take a quick pause right here and we'll continue in the next section.